The Acolyte episode 3 is gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. A lot of people are not gonna be happy with this one. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. And today we're talking about the latest episode of The Acolyte. Is it as bad as a lot of people were saying it's gonna be? No. Dare I say, this episode might even be good. That's right, you heard me. I think this episode is pretty alright. It's pretty good. So the number one thing that people were saying before this episode came out is that it was going to be completely terrible. It was going to be complete trash, doo-doo butter, and they're going to make the Force female. Where is that? What I didn't see any of that. Where it's not trash, it's not doo-doo butter. They didn't say anything about the Force being female. This episode features a lot of women in it, and I feel like that ruffles a lot of feathers. Not just women. It features a lesbian couple. I know, right? Terrible, terrible. Disney is pushing their woke SJW agenda on the general public. They're gonna take over the world and they're gonna turn your frogs gay. But no, on a serious note, I'm not offended by this sort of thing. They're two lesbians. Like who cares? Who cares, really? At first I was a little confused on how did they create these two children? Because they said, oh, the white one carried it, but the black woman, very hot by the way, she created them, and she's hiding a secret as to how. I wonder what that could be. Interesting, very interesting. Everything was acted well. The cinematography was, standard. It wasn't anything too special for me, but it definitely wasn't terrible. There wasn't a lot of action in this episode. The kids, their acting was pretty good. For child actors go, they're pretty good actors. But let's give a little summary of the episode. The episode starts off with the two twins in the forest. They're discussing Osha does not want to become a witch. She lives in a coven of witches, and they're highly expected to take a ceremony to officially become witches, reach their womanhood, if you will. I don't know if they're supposed to be like Night Sisters or maybe some other sort of coven, but it's pretty cool. She explains the Force in a different sort of way than how the Jedi would explain it, which makes sense. You would think that different sects of Force users would have different interpretations of the Force. Yes, we're all familiar with the Jedi interpretation of the Force, and the Sith have their obviously evil interpretation of the Force. And theirs is like, I guess, sort of neutral. But they're like Night Sisters. So Osha does not want to become a Jedi, while May wants to stay with the Coven. So here we have the fundamental piece of drama, the fundamental thing that needs to be in any story, and that is conflict. There's conflict between these two sisters. This is the backstory that people were saying, oh, Osha has no character. Oh, her backstory is told to us rather than shown. Well, here it is. Here it is, people. I know a lot of people are gonna be they're still gonna be mad. People are still gonna be mad at this episode for no reason, because it features mostly women. It passes the Bechdel test. I don't know what the hell the test was called, but yeah, the thing where two women are talking and it's not about men or something. This episode definitely passes that. And then there's this scene when the Jedi come after the ceremony to try and test the children. And I really like this scene. I really like it. It felt like good cop, bad cop. Carrie Ann Moss's character, the bad cop. Saul, the good cop. It was a wonderfully acted scene. It was great. I loved it. Later we see Osha get tested, and she confesses to the Jedi that she wants to become one of them, which upsets her sister. And this is all good acting. I mean, I can't complain. It's not terrible. It's really not. Next, we see that Osha burns down the palace. And now, here is where I have a few issues. Well, this is the first issue that I'm going to address, but here it is. There's no way May killed all of these people. Like, half of these folks, they don't look burned or anything. The fire's not even on them or whatever. They're just lying there. They're not burned. They're not scorched. So I think somebody else had to have killed all of these Force wielders. if they are all Force wielders. We know quite a few of them are at least Force wielders. So somebody had to have killed them because there's no way they died by the fire. And I feel like we're going to get something later on in this series that explains how they all died. Because there's no way May killed all of them. Another thing I have issue with, it's just a small nitpick. The Wookiee Jedi, it looks like he has some sort of blue shit on his head. I don't know what that's about. I think that's a failure of costume, or maybe I'm just tripping. Am I tripping? Leave in the comments. Am I tripping? What's going on with the Wookiee Jedi's head? So yeah, I'm glad I'm not gonna have to goatsy myself. Because if you have watched my previous video, I said I would goatsy myself if this episode was as bad as everyone was saying it was gonna be. And if the Force was female, I would goatsy myself. If episode 3 is going to be as bad as everyone is saying it's going to be, and that the Force is female or whatever, I will goatsy myself. Yes, you heard that right. I will goatsy myself. I will spread my cheeks. I'm glad to say I do not have to goatsy myself. What are some other things I feel like people might take issue with? I know some people might not like that the Jedi feel like cops in my favorite scene of this episode. But I feel like it makes sense because, at this time, the Jedi were not good. Well, they were good in the technical sense, but you got to remember, we're in the decline of the Jedi to where they get to the point they are in the prequels where they're full of hubris and they're more like a political force than they are an organization or religion, something like that. Like, some people got to think the Jedi aren't all that good during this time period. The Jedi are not infallible. I've seen some people say, oh, why didn't this character use the Force at this point? Or, ooh, why didn't the Jedi do this or that? Well, there's a lot of times in other Star Wars media, movies, shows, where the Jedi don't do things that they definitely could have done in certain situations. You can chalk it up to bad writing, but I mean, that's a pretty consistent thing within the Star Wars universe. Before I go, there's an analogy that I want to throw out there. I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans are kind of like Godzilla fans of old. The type of Godzilla fans that are like, all Godzilla movies are trash except for the original. That is before Godzilla -1 came out. This is how I feel like a lot of Godzilla fans were. Not true fans that enjoy all of Godzilla, like how I do. The Showa era, the Millennium era, the Heisei era, the newer films. They're good. But a lot of fans, I know this was very prominent when the 2014 Godzilla came out. A lot of fans were, oh, it's not the original, so it sucks. They dismiss any merit that the movie might have simply because their vision of what Godzilla should be is different from what they saw on screen. They don't realize that if you keep getting the same thing over and over, it gets stale. So it's good for a franchise to mix it up a little bit, to do something different. That's not necessarily bad, but a lot of Star Wars fans view it that way. They view it as bad. Sometimes you just gotta take it for what it is and not what you think it should be. But yeah, what do you think about this episode? Leave it in the comments below. Is this episode as bad as you thought it was going to be? Or were you just holding your breath the entire time waiting for something to happen, like I was? So yeah, leave a comment and a like. Please leave a like. I want to get this video to a good amount of likes, so please do it. Support this channel. If you like this show, tell me why you like it in the comments. If you don't like it, let me know. That's it. Have a good one. Drink some water. Bye.